Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Bro Talk. Dialogues about life, about money, and about psychology or anything else we want to talk about. Uh, 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 um, this is gonna be an awesome episode. Well, I think for the next, I think maybe, I don't know, 10 to 30 episodes,
Oof,
this is gonna be
a lot.
exciting because we
Mhm.
decided we're gonna start talking about this book. Let me just, yeah, you show it to it on 48, what is it called? Oh, the 48 Laws of Power
Yeah.
by Robert Greene. I've read this book a couple times. I think my brother just finished reading this his second time, and but we're gonna reread everything, and we're gonna do multiple episodes summarizing the chapters and what we've learned, what we like, what we don't agree with, and we're just excited for you guys to hear us. Please leave your comments down below if you agree with us. If you don't, maybe do you agree with our interpretation or not? Why or why not? Please give your reasoning. We're very excited. Thank you so much for joining us on this other episode of Bro Talk. We really, really appreciate it. And just come hear us. Just come join our conversation. So I'm not gonna lie to this book. I remember years ago when I first started reading it, I was very overwhelmed after reading this book the first time.
I'm overwhelmed reading it right now.
And this is like your second time. So imagine the first, right?
I feel like younger you just skim through stuff.
Yes.
As you get older, and obviously life hits you differently, and you start to, relate your own experiences to what the book is telling you, or yeah, these subjective life experiences that you've gone through already, and you're able to like relate. And I don't know, you just I've gotten older, I guess I've gotten smarter as well. So I've been able to
Definitely.
understand and comprehend a lot more of what the book is telling me.
And I think especially because you started to read more the last couple years, I think you've definitely gotten smarter. And I think people will realize this, like when if they start from episode one until now or
Oh,
later on, they're like, "Damn, these guys are revolutionary. These guys are in evolution right now.
yeah.
They're going through
But
a
I mean, yeah,
cycle."
that's the whole point, right? Of like starting with episode one and where we're at the moment, and then just growing, learning, and obviously just there. I mean, the audience is able to see that as well.
Yeah, and something that I started doing the last couple years that let's say 8, 10 years ago I wouldn't do, and I think this is a big mistake, especially with this book,
Okay.
is and and then I want to hear your thoughts on this, is you always have to read the preface, the introduction. Many people, and I used to do this a lot back in the day too, I would always skip the introduction or the preface because it's like, let me just get to the content,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? But I'm not saying always, but a lot of the times the author writes his main thesis or the main ideas of what the book is going to portray, right? In the content, but the preface, the introduction, is going to telling you this is the main point of the whole book. So if you understand the main point, then let me feed you different sections or different techniques, so you can now put that on top of my main thesis and why I'm speaking about it. And when I was reading the preface, for me
Hmm.
specifically, this the
Tell
whole
me.
point of the whole point of the book is this. If people have this book at home, great. I'll mention the pages so people can go back and read. But for me, the there's two parts here, that two sentences
Hmm.
that when I see this, when I read it, I was like, this is his main thesis, or this is what he's really trying to say. For example, in the preface, on the second page of the preface, he says this. So he says, if like the courtier of time gone by, you can master the arts of indirection, learning to
I already know where
seduce,
you're at.
charm, deceive, subtly
Hmm.
outmaneuver your opponents, you will attain the heights of power. You will be able to make people bend to your will without their realizing what you have done. So that sentence, which is the second page of the preface, and
Hmm.
the other one is this. It's right here. His other thing is this one is, oh, it's right here. It's the third page of the preface, which is, if the world is like a giant scheming court and we are trapped inside of it, according to what he's saying, which we are,
Hmm.
there's no use in trying to opt out of the game. That will render you as powerless, and powerlessness will make you miserable. Instead of struggling against the inevitable, instead of arguing and whining and feeling guilty, it is far better to excel at power, right? So those two sentences, when I read out of the whole preface, that is what he's really trying to tell the audience, which is us. And I feel like what he's trying to tell me as the reader, is listen, you're already stuck in this world. You're already stuck in this scheming court. And he talks about back in the day, the courts, there was a king or queen, and then there was people that were underneath it, the advisors.
Mhm.
And if you're already
Yes.
I thought of Game of Thrones actually.
I've sorry to interrupt your flow. I was thinking of like back in the days with the Romans, and then they used to have the king, and then a bunch of it's called the courtiers, right? They used
Yes.
to surround and give advice, and I was like, this is such a great example, like just the whole example of what a courtier does
Hmm.
on how to get to somebody without using violence.
Well, because today it's frowned upon to use
Right,
violence.
because it's frowned upon to use violence, right?
I mean, and also when you use violence, right? Another point that he says is that you kind of lose your emotions. You become too emotional, and then it becomes obvious what you're trying to do. But in reality, he mentions the people that would work in the court, the advisors, and
Right.
right, all these people that had different titles and positions inside of the cabinet as the courtiers in the court. You're trying to outwit your enemy, and you're trying to be approved by the king, get the better position by outmaneuvering everyone, being subtle, no violence. So he's saying, if we're already stuck in this game, you need to do the same, which is gain power in whatever aspect in life you're in. That's what I took from it. I don't necessarily agree with all that. I do agree with a lot of it, but not all of it. What about you?
I love the preface, right? The
Uh-huh.
preface is, well, the example that he gave at first with the courtiers, I thought was like the perfect example to describe. Obviously, nowadays, like you said, we live in a time where violence isn't accepted, right? It was frowned upon.
Mm-hmm.
So was during these times, in a sense where, like, the court even says in the book, the court was supposed to represent the height of civilization and refinement,
Correct.
right? So violent or overpower moves were frowned upon. So courtiers would work silently and secretly against any among them who used force. So me thinking about the courtiers that were back in the day, damn, you had to be like so skilled in when it came to talk and manipulation, in trying to get your way and trying to win the higher power's favor,
Mm-hmm.
that it could make you like a sneaky person in a sense.
Well, they are sneaky. That's the
You're
whole point.
right.
You're sneaky.
You're a sneaky person either for good or either for bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you had to find a way, in a sense, to get your way while others stood in the way. So, in a sense, you had to use these laws of power to be able to surpass other people that were trying to use other laws of power towards you, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
found that example super, super lovely. Also, some things that I really liked about the preface was it started to describe in page
Which
three,
page? Okay. Uh-huh.
uh yeah, the third page of the preface, and I boxed this, which was made the reader understand that this is going to take time.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't come naturally. This requires a lot of studying, a lot of experiences, a lot of you going through stuff to be able to master it, in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
and what things to avoid. So the box that I'm talking about was right under the one you read, which was it's actually the last three paragraphs
Mm-hmm.
that says learning the game of power requires a certain way of looking at the world, a shifting of perspective. It takes effort and years of practice. For how much of the game it may not come naturally, certain basic skills are required, and once you master these skills, you'll be able to apply the laws of power more easily. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that is like a summary of what this book is, right? In that paragraph that he gave. Plus, in the following two paragraphs, he spoke about how emotional responses aren't the best, right? When it comes to um like
Trying to get power.
trying to get power, exactly. And one two things that could cloud your reasoning are emotion, and one of them could be anger. It
Mm-hmm.
could be very destructive. So just giving those examples of how you could lose power instead of gaining, and what to avoid, and understanding that everything comes through practice, through
Mhm.
experience, is how you're going to be able to master these laws, right?
Mhm.
So, which actually made me understand that, damn, I might have to read this book a few times, or every time I'm going through an experience in my life and I feel that it's connecting to one of these laws, I could just go back to it and read it,
Mhm.
right? Because it's gonna take time for me to understand it profoundly, to the point where I'll do it consciously, to and then I'll be able to do it subconsciously because it just becomes a part of me, right?
Yes.
And I don't know, I know he didn't get into like every single law here. Either way, he did mention a few things.
Mhm.
Uh, but I did also like, which is something I tend to do a lot, live by this motto. I don't know,
Which one?
it's in the following page, page 4. I
Mhm.
started out, it's paragraph 3, and it says, where it says, for the future, the motto is
Mhm. Yes, yes.
no days on alert. Nothing should catch you by surprise because you are constantly imagining problems before they arise. So I don't know, the way I see this is like, expect the worst, hope for the best. That's how I
Mhm.
took that line. Um, on where you should never be on alert on how these powers could be used against you, and understanding that the world could be a nice place, but it could be a cruel place as well. Therefore, you
Mhm.
must be prepared for what can come. Therefore, it doesn't surprise you.
Mhm.
And I don't know. He also talked about, in the following page, he talked about patience, and how being impatient could be an impediment to power and stuff like that. So he just went through like a whole bunch of like
Mhm.
good
So
uh good examples and good topics to talk about.
so let me push back on something you mentioned.
Okay, tell me.
So the second to last thing you mentioned about the future motto, no days on alert, right?
Okay.
And which is the fourth page you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Nothing should catch you by surprise because you're constantly imagining problems before they arise, right? So the further you see, the more steps ahead of you plan, the more powerful you become. I again, I do think this book can apply. I think anyone can use at least some of these principles, at least, right?
Hmm.
At least some of these principles to help improve your life. And I do believe that we as humans in our interactions, we're always negotiating, trying to persuade. Like that, it's a normal part of life, right? Now,
Yeah.
putting that to aside, I personally would not like to live with that motto. I think it's very few people that must live with that motto. No days on alert. Think about all that stuff. Like if you're running a Fortune 500 company and you got tons
Okay.
of competitors and you're trying to outbeat them, let's say, or you're in war and you're the general or you're the prime minister, then yes, you got to have this type of mindset because you're in a very extreme type of environment. But for example, if you're always thinking like that, and I have a study, and there's probably many studies, but I have one study from 2008 from psychological science that
Hmm.
this kind of mentality to seek power, right? It's like you got to think ahead all the time, think of all the problems, think like that, right? It's like he's kind of saying like you got to think like that because you want the power, and you want power. Why? Because when you have power you feel secure, right? And you're in control. The problem is that according to the study and other similar studies in science proves
Hmm.
that this illusion of control can backfire on the person and give you tons of anxiety and a burnout. So the study in 2008 showed that people who feel a lack of control often, watch this, they often see patterns where none exist, a trait that's linked to paranoia and poor decision making. Right now, this is actually also a fallacy. I don't remember the name of the fallacy, but it's like where
Hmm.
you see patterns in your life or a sign in your life where it's really not there. You are interpreting something that's there because you want to see that, but in reality, it's not there. I forgot the name of that
Hmm.
fallacy because the whole point is like, yes, you want to have power so that you can, and he mentions a couple of things of why you want power, But if you're gonna think like that constantly, I think for most people this is very unhealthy, actually, right? To think
Mm-hmm.
like this because of the repercussions that it can happen, and also it can make a person become less empathetic. Right now, I do. It can make you less empathetic to others, and that's not a good
Thinking,
thing.
thinking like there's a reason behind of what they did.
What do you mean?
Like me, you're saying less empathetic. How?
So what I'm saying is that people that are power hungry and this is all they want, and this is how they're thinking. When I mean empathetic is that the person makes them less take other people's perspectives. Because when you're empathetic, you're like, okay, I could see from your angle why you feel this way or why you're thinking that way. But when you
Mm-hmm.
have power, or that's all you're thinking, you don't care about other people's perspective. Your goal is for you to have the power. And once you have the power, you don't have to look at someone else's perspective. Who cares? I have the power. I'm in control. I get to decide what's going to happen or what's
Mm-hmm.
not going to happen, right? And there was a study at Stanford in 2006 that showed that the pursuit or possession of just power makes you less likely to take other people's perspectives. So it means that people in power are less able to understand or care about other people's emotional states. And again, I'm not saying all billionaires or all people that have power are like this. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if this is all you're thinking, or this is what you become, this becomes your motto,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to become paranoid, and there are repercussions to this. So that's all
I'm
I'm
not.
saying.
I'm not saying I disagree with you because I do see the truth behind it, right? If you're gonna live by that motto, I could see how it could bring up a lot of anxiety in your life, and you can start to be less empathetic towards others, only viewing things from your perspective and not from other people's perspective. But I feel like that all depends on the amount of control you have that in your mind, right?
Mhm.
Because um, not that I necessarily live by that motto, I feel like to a degree I do, but it's not constantly in my mind where I'm thinking that even the people I love or the people I spend time with the most are up against me, right?
Mhm. Right.
And I'm not thinking that you being the closest person to me in my life as my brother, you're going to surprise me. Nothing to surprise me by what you do, right? If you do
Mhm.
something that we've both agreed that we shouldn't do and you do it, it is going to surprise me.
Mhm.
But not because but it's not necessarily because I'm not living by this model, but just because the people I'm surrounded with or I trust, I don't necessarily live in so much anxiety thinking that I'm imagining a future problem that could happen with them. I think and this is where we've had these conversations before.
Mhm.
I don't know if the right word is, but correct me if I'm wrong. Compartmentalization. I'm able
Mhm.
to compartmentalize when to use it and when to not to use it.
Mhm. No, yeah,
Um,
that is the correct word. Yes.
okay. I feel like with people I trust, with people I love, this never flies through my mind. But maybe when I'm around strangers, I'm around the real world, in a work environment with maybe a new group, a new team, right? It's where I could change my mind into now, okay, nothing should surprise me at this point because I don't know these people and I don't know what to expect. Therefore, I do want to hope for the best, but I have to give myself in a sense that security or that mentality understanding that the worst could come about to be,
Mhm.
and it's, I don't know, it's like a sense of protection, it's a sense of of safety for my mind in a
Mhm.
sense, because if you're going to come at everything thinking that everything's innocent and everything's going to flow well, and when it doesn't, I feel like that'll bring you much
Anxiety.
more anxiety and even some type of sadness because you didn't mentally prepare for it.
Or maybe another angle that I could see where this maybe could be helpful, but again, it right, because maybe another interpretation of this line is nothing should catch you by surprise because you're constantly imagining problems before they arise. So maybe he also means like, listen, even your best friends, your family members, maybe like don't think of problems with them, but maybe like, hey, anything can happen with anybody. And he even talks about that in law too, which we'll get to eventually, right? Where it's like, don't be surprised by anything because
but
anything
i
can
feel like
happen.
but I feel like you can only you apply this to an extent where subjectivity plays a part into it. Because if you are a person that hasn't gone through those type of experiences with family and friends, maybe you're a person that never applies this to, you never apply this to. But if you've gone through the worst and unfortunately have had problems with parents, siblings, cousins,
Mhm.
uncles, you know, I'm just drawing close people, wives, sons,
Yeah.
then you're like, damn, anybody could do this to me. And if anybody could do this to me, I must stay alert at all times.
Mhm.
And that's why I feel like the subjectivity part plays into it as well, of how deeply an individual is going to apply to it. Obviously, you can have, only because it happened with one close family member doesn't mean it's going to happen with the other. And that's when you
Mhm.
have to be able to um, realize that not only because one family member it happened to, it doesn't mean it applies to everyone else. And that's when you have to like really like separate that feeling or
Mhm.
that experience of yours with everyone else. But I believe subjectivity definitely plays a part.
I mean, I think the author did disagree with you, probably. Probably. I don't
Really?
know. I think he would disagree with you because like also like if you read in the same page, right?
Mm-hmm.
He put a quote here. It's in red on my left side on page 1, 2, 3, 4, where it says there are no principles.
I was just
They're
reading
only they're
that.
only events. There's no good and bad. They're only circumstances, right? I mean, it continues to go, but I think it's off topic. So it's like, right, like this type of mentality. He's saying you're constantly imagining problems before they arise. So it's like, instead of spending your time dreaming of your plan's happy ending. Now, here he's speaking about a plan, right? Right, like whatever the plan you want to accomplish. But
Hmm.
I feel like the author, because the way he's writing and about manipulation, and you never know, especially when we get to Law 2, where he's like, you got to be careful with your friends,
Right, that's
with a
another
lot of stuff.
interesting.
So
Yeah.
that's friends, and we all know, right? A lot of the cliche quotes where it's like, it's much easier for family to backstab you, right?
Hmm.
Right. So because they may take you for granted or there's no gratitude. He says that, and there's also like studies that show that a lot of times that could be the case, right? But it's like there are no events, and there's no. And now this is interesting. There's no such thing as good or bad. He put a quote. There's only
Hmm.
circumstances, right? And I actually agree with that. Where it's like we can't really, for most people, you can't really say you're a good guy, you're a bad guy, because we all do a mix of everything. It's just a circumstance. Why maybe someone that you're very close to, he did something bad, whatever the case is, but the circumstance made him do it, even though maybe his intention was better. And he even says it's not about intention, it's about the action they do to you. So,
Right, which is another point I wanted to get to.
but like but this is what I'm saying. It's like
Uh-huh.
if he's putting down, it's not about the intention, it's about what the person did with the actual action, then anybody can do anything to you, family, friend, or a stranger.
But
Is but
that's true.
but I know, but
Uh-huh.
maybe for a lot of people, they don't have to worry about it because it hasn't happened to them. Their
Well,
subjective
not that, okay,
experience.
maybe I said that wrong. Not that they don't have to worry about it. It
Uh-huh.
is true, it can happen, but
Yes.
they don't apply it so much, or they don't have that same anxiety as someone who has gone through it.
Hmm.
So they don't really have to compartmentalize it as much, while other people that have gone through it do. That was my, not that they don't have to worry, because the truth is that anyone could do anything to you. You're the only person that has 100% of your own back,
Hmm.
logically speaking. Like,
Hmm.
but obviously the person that hasn't gone through that same experience or had the same trauma you do doesn't really, maybe have to imagine a problem before it arises, because they haven't lived such a harsh lifestyle as, while the person that has encountered those traumas has had to imagine problems before they come up.
Hmm.
I'm just saying that you were saying there's a study. Like, I'm not saying this is not true. This is 100% true. I just believe that what you said afterwards is the results of it. What can happen if you live by this mindset, right?
Hmm.
Which is the anxiety, which is being less empathetic. But I don't think it takes away from the truth of this.
No, of course not. No, a statement can be true, like steroids can make you get bigger muscles quicker, but right? But then, they say testicular size goes down and you're more angry. and
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
those
yeah, yeah.
things can lead to. No, you're 100% correct. But what I'm saying is that if someone were to read this book, and if you're not like a prime minister or a president dealing with war, or you're the CEO or a top position of a company that has a lot of competitors, again, I'm just thinking off the top of my head on certain circumstances. I
Hmm.
don't think you need to live with that motto, or I don't think you need to live with the mentality of like, I need to manipulate. Now, I'm not saying, again, I haven't spoken to the author, I haven't listened to a bunch of his interviews. Just going based off the writing, it just sounds like he's like, power is amoral. We're already in it, so you might as well just do it because you need it. But the writing is like, it's like manipulate, and it's gonna go to your. It sounds like very sneaky and seductive, but I don't feel
The
like you have
writing.
the writing and the angle he's going at it, right? I'm not saying it's not true, but I feel like you can still do a lot of these laws and principles, and these things could be true, but I don't think you have to think like that necessarily, not only all the time, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
overall. Overall.
Overall, no, but I believe it's important. Maybe just in a way to protect yourself, and if anything goes wrong, you could mentally be like, okay, you're like, I knew that this was a possibility.
Well, he does say it. Yeah, he does say it.
You never took that out. Like you knew it was a possibility. Either way, you never really thought about it, and you never wanted it to happen, but you knew it was always there.
No, yeah, but it's like saying, I mean, again, I'm going to use an extreme example. It's like saying, I know that cocaine is going to make me more productive because I'm going to focus more. Let's say, I mean, I don't know so much about cocaine, but let's just say, oh, but I know the results could be like I'm going to become addicted. I'm going to become a drug addict and
Hmm.
everything else. So it's like, now, of course, this is not the same thing, but you could use a lot of these things for the wrong. But he does mention in the preface that you could use this to good, to become a better friend, a better husband, a better wife, a better partner,
Yes.
a better business person, which is true. And I think if we tread it, I think if you can tread with this with a good balance, which I feel like could be hard, but with a good balance, I think that if you have a good purpose, if you have a good purpose, you have goals like I want to do good things in life, this and you have in mind that this can go either bad or wrong, I think you have a higher chance of doing well with this.
Right.
That's my conclusion with the preface.
Oh, I wasn't even done talking about the podcast. There's
No,
so
no,
much
no,
more to
continue. No,
talk.
no, no. I say it for me, but continue.
I do see what I do agree with what you said. Plus, I do see what also you talked about how the writing of the book has seemed very manipulative. We started talking about a point which I do want to get to, but before that point, he wrote page 3, I think it is. No, not page 3. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Um, he talks about like wearing a mask, and it
Yes.
says there's a top paragraph of the fifth page. It says, "Make your face as malleable as the actors. Work to conceal your intentions from others. Practice luring people into traps. Playing with appearances and mastering arts of deception are amongst the atheistic pleasures of life. They're also kept. They're also key components in the acquisition of power." So I'm not
Mhm.
saying that's not true. It is true, but I do see where you say like the writing can seem very manipulative, but it can also it depends how you use it.
Mhm.
Are you going to use
Correct.
it for good or are you going to use it for bad? Just like we talked about traits in previous podcasts, where like traits could be used for good or bad. They have both sides. It just depends how you use it.
Yes.
So I believe that like that's when you said manipulative, I was like, when he wrote that, I was like, damn, like telling us to make our face malleable depending on the situation. You could lure people into traps. I'm like, oh shit, like
I mean, and again, I'll also mention maybe he wrote it like that to make it very entertaining, because this is a
of
very
course,
entertaining
yeah,
book, and it's very captivating. And when you do
yes, it
write a book
is.
and you want to sell, you got to make it sound good. So I'm also going to throw that out there. Uh, it's just I think it the writing can come out as manipulative and ruthless and seductive and cunning. And I think if you're not in the right mindset or or healthy boundaries, this can go complete craziness, and you could
Where
the
he's
bad.
telling you that the laws of powers you could adhere and get these qualities to make others so you can be manipulative, be seductive, and other factors, but he's adding that to his writing as well while you're reading it.
Yes, I mean, or maybe he's just being very upfront. He's saying, listen, this can happen, right? As you've mentioned. So again, I think this is a great book.
He's manipulating us to think and believe in what he thinks.
Correct. So we're being manipulative right now. Throw it out. No, I'm just kidding. No, but this is a great book. It really is, and I do think there is some good, positive psychological things that we can use for the good.
Yes, which is why I wanted to ask you a question about still the preface.
The preface. All right, go.
He says, what
Which
does it
page?
matter if another player, same page 5,
Okay,
what
go.
does it matter if another player, your friend or rival, intended good things or had only your interests at heart if the effects of his actions lead to so much ruin and confusion?
What does it matter if another player, your friend or rival, intended good things and had only your interests at heart if the effects of his action lead to so much ruin? Okay, yeah.
It's a very interesting question because before he says that, he's like, do not judge your opponents by the intentions, but the effect of their actions, which is something you mentioned earlier.
Correct.
Now, my question to you is, how true is that? Because he's like, it is only natural for people to cover up their actions with all kinds of justifications, always assuming they are acted out of goodness. But you must learn inwardly, laugh each time you hear this, and never get caught up in gauging someone's intentions and actions through a set of moral judgments that are really an excuse for the accumulation of power. Like, what do you think of that? Because that he keeps on writing and he says, train your eye to follow the results of their moves, the outward circumstances, and do not be distracted by anything else.
Yes.
So
yeah, that was the next paragraph.
that's,
yeah, on page 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the preface, he really is saying, like, listen, life is a game. The life is really it's a game about manipulation. How do you get what you want in this life, right? And from what he's writing, he's saying, like, listen, don't take anyone for granted, no matter if, again, I'm gonna add certain ideas, but he probably had this in mind, or maybe if you asked him, he probably could say this. Like, if you guys are in the same church, same synagogue, the same mosque, or you guys are family, or you've known each other for 20 years or 5 years, he's basically saying it doesn't matter who it is, that person is going to be your opponent, either maybe tremendously, maybe moderate, or mildly. People are your opponents. People want something that maybe you want, so don't take people lightly and don't just judge them and say, like, listen, for example, we follow the same religion, so clearly he wouldn't do that to me, right?
Yeah, that's not true. Yeah.
Again, I'm not saying everyone, things happen, but that's what he's saying. And yes, is it true that we should judge them by the action and not the intention? Because he's saying you also don't know the person's intention. They could tell you their intention, but do you actually know their intention? Can you read hearts? No. People can retroactively, and we've spoken about this, right? We make a decision, something, or we do something emotionally, and then we'll go back to it and be like, but I did this logically, and you'll put some type of logic that you come up with later on into the action or the decision or the emotion, and then you rationalize it, and you're like, I did this because of this logic, right?
While intent is more of something you can't read, therefore you must trust if someone's intent is good, an action will actually prove, I guess.
He's basically saying, look at the action, because that's what they actually did to you, either good or bad, right. In this case, he's talking more about bad, because he's like, yeah, oh, I didn't mean to steal again, a stupid example, I didn't mean to steal $10,000. It's just that I found it in your house, and I was gonna give it back to you because I didn't want anyone else to steal it. Okay, it makes sense, but you still stole $10,000. Like, you took it out of my house when it was in my house.
Either way, your intent was
to give it back. And
okay.
To give it back. And again, this is assuming he gets caught, because maybe he did take your 10,000, but then he actually did give it back to you without you catching him.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, I can trust him, right? I mean, you might be like, but why did you take it out? Like, why didn't you call me or something? But he did give it back, but without you catching him. But what if you caught him first, right? So it's like, look at the action, because that's what actually happened. It's not the potential, or it's not the intention. It's the actual action that was expressed in the actual physical world to you. So that's what he's saying. But then my counter argument, or something I would say, is like, okay, but then what if you messed up? And let's say, right? Because this is also kind of like saying like you don't know people's intentions, so you never know. Again, creating paranoia. You can't trust anyone. Then damn, I'm gonna live life not trusting. And there are people who can do this. I'm gonna live life going
Really?
through life. Oh yeah, like for example, people that are billionaires, right? Billionaires, they've done studies, and 𝗨𝘀𝘀 talks about this, and there's a book called the book you bought me, the H personality factor. I forgot the name, the title of it. And there's
Yeah.
probably the studies that I've heard about where they study the psychology and the traits of a billionaire, and billionaires are there at extremes. They're willing to do anything to get to the next level, anything, good or bad, right?
Because power is addicting.
Because power is addicting. Because once you're a billionaire, now it's not about the money anymore. Because you
No,
already have
yeah.
the money. Now it's about power, influence, right? But going back, I know I went off a little tangent. So it's like now it's about. So it's like, okay, this could be true, but now I can't trust anyone. I'm gonna live with paranoia. And what if you did it? What if you messed up? Right? What? And it was someone you loved, but you messed up because we are humans and we do mess up, and maybe we do have a good intention, but our actions, because of a stupid emotional thing we thought or we said or we forgot something. Again, there could be a lot of excuses,
Right.
right?
No, keep going, keep going.
And then no one's gonna trust you, and then you're gonna lose friendships, you're gonna lose a lot of things because you did not reciprocate. Now, of course, there are times where you cannot give the benefit of the doubt. Clearly they did something wrong, and depending on the action they do to you, maybe you can forgive and forget, but maybe sometimes you can only forgive, but then you have to step away because you can't trust them anymore, at least for a while. But I'm just saying, put yourself in the other person's shoes, and what if they did this to you? So again, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I agree, but I have
No,
a lot of thoughts.
I agree as well, but I see what you're saying about how, like, put yourself into that situation. And once you could put yourself into that situation, I feel like you could start seeing it from a lot of different perspectives, right?
Correct.
And because maybe you didn't mean it that way. So does this apply to you as well? Do you play a part in this percentage of people that mess up? So, like, I see what you're saying. Makes a lot of sense. And I think to end off with the preface, my favorite part
Go.
was towards the end, the last page. It says a
Okay.
warning.
Oh,
However,
the
to
warning.
those who use the book for this purpose, it might be better to turn back. Which, when I read it, I was like, oh, damn. Because it says, finally, the book can be browsed through and picked apart from entertainment for an enjoyable ride through the foibles and great deeds of our predecessors in power.
Yes.
So, a warning to those who use the book for this purpose, you might want to turn back. So,
Well, it's too late already.
like, it's too late. I'm going to be using these powers for bad. So, no, but it's just reading the preface was
Uh-huh.
amazing. It was amazing. I really loved it a lot.
All right, so let's go to
But
chapter one now. Uh-huh. Yeah, tell me.
chapter one, never outshine the master. I'll just read the judgment real quick, and then we can
Yeah,
just get into
into it.
the topic. The judgment says, always make those above you feel comfortably superior. If you desire to please and impress them, do not go too far in displaying your talents, or you might accomplish the opposite. Inspire, inspire fear and insecurity. Make your masters appeal more brilliant than they are, and you will attain the heights of power.
Mm-hmm.
This is the law that I feel like everyone knows. When people say that they've
You'd
read
be
the book,
surprised. You'd be surprised, huh?
what you mean?
I mean, not. I mean, it sounds obvious, but remember, a lot of things that are common sense, a lot of times are not common sense or obvious to
Oh,
people.
I've just noticed every time someone says they've read the book, I'm like, okay, give me a few laws it talks about. And the first one they always give me is the never outshine the master. I'm like, okay, only because you know one doesn't mean you've read the book. But that's neither here nor there.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, you're right. Not a lot of people might not even know this. Now, what was one thing that you were able to get out of never outshine the master? Because he
Mm-hmm.
gives a lot of examples here, right? He starts
Correct.
with the transgression of the law, he starts with the observance of the law. So, what this means for the audience is basically he gives like a bad example of of an example in the past of how someone
Messed up.
didn't, how someone
Mm-hmm.
messed up, how someone did try to outshine the master, while and then he gives the interpretation and how did it get to that point. While in the observance of the law, he talks about someone that didn't outshine the master, and because of not outshining the master, this person got to higher levels in, let's say, the hierarchy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because of making the master or the person above them feeling superior, they were able to also enjoy certain privileges or get what they want and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And then he also talks about the keys of the power. So then they start talking about other examples, but basically, what how can we translate this power to real life and stuff like that?
So I would say that I think this is an interesting law or tactic that can help you become humble.
You know, I
I
totally agree with you there. Like,
Now, do I think this is the best way to humble yourself? Probably not. I think there are better spiritual ways and spiritual mindsets to help you become humble. But I think
mhm.
this is an interesting way to make you humble, where it's like it makes you realize, like, hey, because I'm not the master, because I'm not the CEO, because I'm not at the top of the company or of wherever you're at, I am replaceable, right? And a lot of times when you're arrogant, you don't think you're irreplaceable because you're like, I have these skills, I'm charismatic, I'm confident, but then it makes you realize, hey, I'm irreplaceable. I'm sorry, I'm replaceable, and I'm not as good as I think I am, and I actually don't have as much control as I think I do, right? And I think, for example, on chapter one, I'll tell you right now,
they
page
should they should name this chapter "Be Humble."
be humble. Page 5, right? The second to last paragraph, the end
Okay.
where so for me the best part was this. It says the lesson is simple. And he gives two lessons. Number one, if you cannot help being charming and superior, you must learn to avoid such monsters of vanity. Either that or find a way to mute your good qualities when in the company of a Borgia, which is someone he gives in the book, right?
Could okay. I'm just trying to find where you're reading.
Oh,
Sorry.
it's the second to last paragraph. Okay, so you see the beginning on page 5 where it says a
A
few
bit.
weeks later.
Yeah. Okay. I got you.
So it's further down there. So that's the
Okay.
first thing. The second thing is second. Never imagine that because the master loves you, you can
Uh,
do anything you want. Entire books could be written about favorites who fell out of favor by taking their status for granted for daring to outshine. And then whatever he gives
mhm.
a historical example of a Japanese
Yes.
emperor, right? So
Hmm.
these two things. So in regards to the first one, that is simple, but it's so genius, right? Where it's like if you are already like let's say good looking and you're charismatic and no matter what you say you just always sound good, then for example something you need to do is you need to either, and actually women psychology for women do this a lot actually naturally, where women will bring themselves down in a group setting so that they can all be equal, right? And it's
Hmm.
because actually women don't have so much testosterone. Men have 15 times
Yeah.
more testosterone than women. And testosterone mixed with low serotonin, which is what men have a lot of the times, that makes us more competitive, more violent, more aggressive, and want to be a leader, right? So
Yeah.
if you're already like this and you're not at the top, you need to either make yourself a little bit dumber, you need to be goofier, right? Use more self-deprecating humor, like make more fun of yourself, and
Yes. I
maybe
totally agree. Uh huh.
maybe make the master realize they need you. That hey, I need you because you are better at this at me, right? And if you can do that, especially if you're good looking and you're already charismatic, that brings the inner guard of the master of the CEO down, and they are not going to replace you most likely. And on top of that, always remember they love me, but let me not pass my line because then they're going to get rid of me because they're going to be insecure, which again, it's a very normal human feeling to be
Of
insecure,
course. 100%.
right?
Hmm.
They're going to be insecure that I'm going to want to throw them out. Even if that's not your intention. But how are they going to know that? So I think in the meantime, if you can do that and you play your cards right, the person can eventually promote you, or maybe they'll get older and weaker and then you can take over and it's just natural. right? But you just have to play the long game. So this is, for me, is a fascinating way of staying humble. And I think a lot of the times, if there's a quality or thing you're trying to achieve and it's hard for you, you might have to do unorthodox ways of getting there, like this. So that's what I would have to say.
I really love when you talked about being humble, because that's also a thing that popped up in my mind. And like you said, sometimes you have to do unorthodox ways. And I believe the reason he wrote it this way is because he is talking about a master
Yes.
that, in a sense, that's bad. A master that has an insecurity, a master that doesn't want to be outshined. Not all
Correct.
masters, which obviously we're using master because it's how he phrased it, but that could be
Mhm.
CEOs, that could be bosses, that could be someone, a mentor of yours and stuff like that, right? That can mean anybody. But he's talking about those masters, or those people in above, that don't want to be outshined, that they always want to
Mhm.
be on top. So how to approach it, right? So it's interesting how he mentions this law first, because on page 4,
Okay.
in the second to last paragraph, he talks
Mhm.
about how when it comes to power, outshining the master is perhaps the worst mistake of all, which I
Mhm.
find it very interesting, because everyone has insecurity. So when you show yourself in the world and display your talents, you can naturally stir up kinds of resentment, envy, and other manifestations of insecurity. So
Right.
when you show this, right, if and you can even be coming at this, because in the first example, when they show the transgression, the person that was trying to impress Lewis, I think that was the king,
Yeah, Louis the
was
King. Yeah.
Louis the King, was trying to do it out of good intention, was
Correct.
trying
He
to do it
was.
out of good hearts, right? And just a little background of the story, he just wanted the prime minister position was being taken away, and he was the successor of it. So thinking that he could obtain that, he wanted to just make a big party of riches and stuff like that with the king's permission. But a lot of people started seeing that and started thinking that, oh, he was like the richest, or he
The-
was like,
Mhm.
sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say, yeah. Louis felt insecure because he was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
is he trying to outshine me with his rich, his lavish party, his connections?
right.
Is he trying to do
And
that right now?"
yeah, he wanted to make like the biggest party ever. And that was coming out of good heart. It wasn't like someone deliberately trying to outshine you. That was just, hey, I just want to do this, and I want to do this for you. But even doing this out of good intention and good heart, he was able to make that king insecure, where to the point where he sent him to over 20 years in prison, ended up dying there, I believe. So that makes us believe that,
Yeah.
just like you said, just because the master likes you or love you doesn't mean you can do anything you want.
Correct.
Because if the master sees any type of that, well, it's obviously through his insecurity, but if he sees any type of want to take over, or in either power and richness, or whatever that case is, he will replace you immediately. And the book says, with someone less intelligent, someone less attractive, and someone less threatening. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what he did. So sometimes, um, you have to be careful, right, on how you approach things when you want to show something about yourself, in a sense, right? Because in the second
Mhm.
example, which was great about Galileo, he was discovering a lot of things, but he was able, I believe, where does it say it? He was able to give the glory out of the stars, aligning them with the Medicis, I believe it was. So
Mhm.
by him doing that, he didn't outshine the master. He actually involved the discovery that he did into uh Medicis, and how, how he was important as just the new discovery was.
Mhm.
So unfortunately, if you have a master that all they think about is glory and appearing more brilliant than other people, then this is just a way you're gonna have to approach it.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. And what I liked also is
Mm-hmm.
that he did put a little by the way, right? Like a little nugget in there.
Okay. Wait.
In page 4, in the same paragraph you were reading, Keys to Power, you didn't read the sentence where it says, you cannot spend your life worrying about the petty feelings of others. With those above you, however, you must take a different approach. And then you say, when it comes to power, outshining the masters, perhaps the worst mistake of
Yes.
all.
Okay.
So I
Mm-hmm.
love that because he's actually saying you don't have to do this with everybody. You don't have to do this with
Yeah. No.
everybody.
Fuck everybody.
Probably with most people, you don't have to do this. You don't.
Uh
But
huh.
it's like if you're trying to climb the ladder, the corporate ladder, if you're trying to improve at
Yes.
your job, maybe at a small business, or you're trying to get investors money, or where it's like there's someone above you, and you're truly trying to either at some point be them, or grow or something, in different worlds, you have to take this approach. But with most people, you don't have to do this. You don't have to outshine. You can just be yourself. But when it comes to being a master, don't outshine them. Be humble. And I would even say, right, I feel like, I don't know if this would have worked. This is just something maybe I would have thought of.
Okay.
What Nicolas Fouquet, because I think it's French. I think Fouquet or Fouquet, but I think it's
Okay.
Fouquet. I think it's Fouquet. I could be wrong. Maybe before he would have done this party, this lavish party and everything,
Mm-hmm.
maybe he could have spoken to Louis and tell him, like, listen, I what can I do to get that position of the prime of the
Communication.
he wanted the prime minister position. He should have communicated and said, listen, I really want that. What can I do to get it? I was thinking of maybe throwing this big party in your honor, and I want to bring everyone to see how marvelous you are. Maybe he would not have been thrown in jail for 25 years until he died. Maybe. Maybe it wouldn't have worked. I don't know.
Obviously, that's something we would never know, but I think it's a great
Correct.
strategy, right? So instead of assuming that you're in good intent on doing something,
It's
could
obvious.
it's obvious and can be portrayed the same way that you're viewing it towards the person, towards your master in a sense. Communicate it or be upfront about it and be like, hey, I want to do something for you. How can I make this in a sense acceptable in your liking? Therefore, if I need to adjust a few things, or if I end up realizing while I'm communicating with you that you weren't seeing it the same way I'm seeing it, therefore I could adjust my way. Therefore, when I do this party now, and you're aware of it, you're gonna know that this is for you. You don't even have to question it. No matter how good I look, you came up to me and communicated with me that you wanted to do this for me.
Correct.
And
Yes.
maybe
Yes.
even in the speech, and while you're talking to everybody, by the way, I'm doing this for the
Okay.
master, blah blah blah. He's
Wow.
been such a great thing.
You're so convincing.
I'm kissing ass right now
Wow. How how big is it? Like,
because the
wow.
thing is that I feel like a lot of people, and I'm glad I fucking said that. A lot
Which
of
part?
the kissing ass part.
Okay.
A lot of people will see this as, oh, so you're just telling me to kiss ass.
Not necessarily, no.
Not necessarily, right? Because listen, I feel like I subconsciously use this law to my advantage all the time. Like
Uh-huh.
obviously in the corporate world, trying to move up above ranks, being friendly with people, seeing what they like, um, putting myself as an inferior. But like, no, I don't think I have that much experience in this. I would adhere to what he says because obviously he's been in the job much longer than I do. Maybe not have that much of big of an opinion in situations that people um know more than you, be maybe a better listener instead of a talker, and showing things like that. It's not necessarily like kissing ass. It is being humble, but I feel like a lot of people would see it as kissing ass. I don't know if you agree
I mean,
with that.
you kind of are, but also you can't overdo it either because then it becomes obvious, right? Um,
Yeah.
I mean, listen, if people want to say that phrase, then whatever. Then say then you are. But then it's like, okay, but if you don't do that, you might not go up the ladder. And what you want to make more money, right? You want to invest more, right? You want to have a better life. You want to provide more for your family. So you might have to humble yourself. So hey, listen, if for them, oh, kissing ass, I can't do that, then you know something, then you can't humble yourself.
Yeah, you're never
You're
gonna make
only
it.
you're never gonna make it. You're only gonna advance in life if you humble yourself. Also, in spirituality, being humble is it's such a great thing to be humble. And I just want people who are listening, and just between you and me, being humble doesn't mean you're not confident, because you can be very confident in your skill and what you say, but you can still be humble. You can still be humble. Being humble does
Yes.
not equal I'm not confident, I'm stupid, I'm the worst. No, that's not what being humble is. That's just being insecure and not having confidence. They're not the same thing. I just want to throw that out there. Okay.
Right. Maybe not speaking on things that you have no knowledge of, but whatever you do have knowledge of, you take a step in knowing that you have confidence in what you say.
Correct.
But you
Correct,
can
sir.
at the same time you can still be humble you
Correct.
know
Correct. Continue. I'm just kidding.
there was another part of the
Go.
of this chapter that I loved a lot too.
Which one?
Um it's in page 6,
Okay, go.
which obviously he's telling us to remember this because these are like strategies and ways to understand how to never outshine the master and how to elevate yourself, right?
Okay.
And he says it falls into the first two paragraphs you got to follow. It
Okay.
says, remember the following: never take your position for granted, and never let any favors you receive go to your head. Because knowing the dangers of outshining your master, you can turn this law to your advantage. First, you must flatter and puff up your master. As we spoke about, even you said it. Sometimes you have to use I'm trying to remember what you said. Some type of jokes, like jokes
Uh,
about
uh,
yourself.
Self-deprecating humor. Yes.
Self-deprecating humor in a sense where like you putting yourself down and uplifting the master, like, oh, I'm not as smart as you. I can never do what you did. Or like, you know, you had it harder in a sense.
Mhm.
And words like that where you could puff up or stroke the master's ego.
Mhm. But I feel like when you do that, me personally, when I've done that, I
Mhm.
honestly find things that are actually true, because you also don't want to
Of
do it
course.
and be lying about it.
So this is why this book is so bad and good, right? So it's telling you to do it in in a sense. I feel like this book could tell you to do it in a bad way, right? Because even if you
Mhm.
continue reading it, it says make him more appear intelligent than you, act naive, make it seem like you need his expertise. So like you could do this, but do you mean it genuinely or do you not mean it genuinely? Because like what you said, like I could mean whatever I'm saying, and either way, I might be making these self-deprecating jokes, but I mean it, and it might hold some truth. But if you're saying it in a way that's malicious, just because you want to outshine the master, you want to get there, then yeah, you could follow this and it could still work, but you're just taking it from a different approach.
Correct. So I don't want to fall under like the lie
Of course,
aspect,
yeah,
right? So that's why I actually try to find something that is actually true about them,
live in honesty,
right? Like
right?
for example, I'm trying to think of an example. Maybe you could think of an example too.
Well, it says make it clear that your advice is merely an echo of his advice.
Mhm.
So, what type of example are you looking for?
So for example, I remember years ago I gave a speech. I gave a speech,
Wow,
and someone came up to me, and they're
about
like, "My
what?
God, it was about it was a what it was I think it was like something about communication." I did at Kingsborough Community College. Remember
Uh,
when I used to go there?
I remember. I remember.
So when I was there, I gave like a seminar, and someone came up to me and said like, "Wow, you give such great speeches." And I actually kind of knew the guy, kind of like he was also a student at Kingsborough, right?
Okay.
And he was like, I'm also trying to and he was like the president of some club. I don't remember which club, right? And he was like, I'm also trying to improve my speaking skills, and like what can I do? Now, of course, he wasn't my master. I wasn't like he wasn't the CEO of a company. I was trying to go out, right? But I remember telling him, I said, and I knew a little bit of his background, so I remember saying, like, listen, you eventually will become a better speaker than myself, right? Because first of all, the tactics I mentioned in the speech, you know them as well. You can read them in any book. You can go on YouTube and find the same things. So we already have the same knowledge. The only reason why it may seem like I know I could speak better is because I practice it more. I know you also practice it, but I do it a bit more. So more practice, you're gonna get better. But on top of that, I have a stutter. So maybe for me, my progress it goes in slower increments. The only reason you see it as me advancing is because I just do it more. You don't have a stutter, right? He was like, no, I don't. I'm like, do you have a difficulty being on stage? Like, no. So I made him realize you have all this. You will eventually become better than me. And it just happened to be the world he was in. He was going to be exposed to a lot more speaking than I was. So I was like, at some point, and everything I said was true.
So
There's no lying.
you're being a good master.
Correct. Slave. No, I'm just kidding. No, no, no. No, I know, but it was true. And he's like, oh yeah, you're right. And there's been times where I've been in conversations where like let's say I'm doing something and clearly this other person is smarter than I am or more creative and then it makes them want to do it as well because in the conversation I probably sense some envy or like hey if he can do it I can do it.
Some hate, yeah.
And again, it's not like they hate me, but it's like, man, if he's doing it, what have I been doing? So when I sense that in a conversation, I bring up the fact like, hey, you can do it as well. You know everything I do, which is true. Which is true. They know the same thing. They're probably more creative than I am. They could do the same thing. So again, these are just some random examples that I'm giving where to avoid the hate and to avoid potential envy or hatred, I will I will not outshine myself. I will degrade myself because I also don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it.
Yeah, but that's you. That's your personality.
Correct. Like I know God loves me, created me, he gave me these gifts. I'm just going to use them in my own world how I want to do because that's just who I am. But I don't know, but that's me. So yeah.
No, I agree, and I believe most people that approach it the same way as you and have that type of personality and continue to remain humble like that, I believe are the people that come out more successful, in my
Correct.
opinion. In my opinion, right? There's just I don't know if you want to mention another thing, but there was another thing that I did like about
I mean,
if you want to have that mentality, right? Uh, it says in the last paragraph of page 6, in all of these cases, it is not your weakness to disguise your strengths. In the end, they lead to power. By letting others outshine you, you remain in control instead of being a victim of their insecurity. So, like you said, obviously, if you do this in a good way and not in a malicious way, and by you humbling yourself, and other people would say, quote unquote, kissing ass, but those people are wrong. If you humble yourself, at the end of the day, this leads to power. This leads to better opportunities, better things in life.
mm-hmm.
And especially, hopefully, if you have a good master and, the master tells you, as you were saying, like, I want you to do better than me. My whole purpose is by helping you is to, get somewhere, right? Because eventually the student can outshine the master,
Yeah, correct.
right? But you should never approach it in a way where like, or even say it out loud. Yeah, I want to outshine you. Like that shouldn't be your purpose in a sense. Your
Correct.
purpose should be like, I'm appreciative of the opportunity and I know I wouldn't be here without you. But I will strive to do my best in anything that I could do. Right? That is like a humble way to approach it instead
Yeah.
of being like, yeah, my point is to outshine you and overcome and take everything you have. Like obviously, I'm just using an extreme example, but
Yeah, of
there are different
course.
ways that you could say that and not seem humble, or at the same time, even with actions as well. But listen, at the end of the day, the reversal of this. I don't know if you want to say something else, but
No, I have nothing
no,
else to say.
okay.
I'm
The
listening to you.
the reversal of this law. It says if you're doing it in a malicious way. It says bide your time and be patient, and if you play it right, you will outlive and someday outshine him. So
Mm.
I don't know. I
Oh,
just when I read this book, I just see things from a malicious perspective, which is why this book is banned in many places.
yes, it is banned. It is, especially in prison.
Yeah.
Uh, all right, let's go to law two then. So
Okay.
let me read law two, and then we'll start with your thoughts first.
Oh.
Law two: never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. It says,
Oh
be
God.
wary of friends. They will betray you more quickly, for they're easily aroused to envy. They also become spoiled and tyrannical. But hire a former enemy, and he will be more loyal than a friend because he has more to prove. In fact, you have more to fear from friends than from enemies. If you have no enemies, find a way to make them. What do
Damn.
you think? What do you think about this chapter, or like what really stuck to you, or what you agreed with, or what you didn't agree with?
This is this is interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm really loving this book. Anyways, getting off topic. Um, I agree and disagree.
Okay.
Um, because you can have great friends and people that you consider friends as family, and they could be a lifetime, and you could use them in different things in life, either work or not,
Hmm.
and you could see the progress of it. But at the same time, there could be friends that hurt you. And they
Hmm.
say that betrayal hurts the most, not because it comes from your enemy, it's because it comes from who's closest to you.
Hmm.
So that's why betrayal exists in a sense, right? Because you from your enemies, you always expect the worst. You know what's coming.
Hmm.
It's from your friends or from people that are close to you that betrayal exists, and it hurts the most because you didn't see this coming. Which is why we go back to the preface.
Where it says the
where
motto, be
where it
alert.
says be what does it say? Hold on, let me
No
just find
days
no
unalert.
does an alert. You should nothing should catch you by surprise because you are constantly imagining problems before they arrive.
Hmm.
But that's getting off topic. Um, Interestingly enough, that's where the betrayal comes from, and I feel like that's why the author came from this perspective.
Hmm.
But he talked about two examples, which I find very interesting. So it was about the transgression of the law, where there was a young man named Michael, and he was going to take the Byzantine Empire, take the throne,
Hmm.
and he ended up meeting somebody um, that I believe ended up, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe ended up like saving his life and becoming a close friend to him. And he was like someone poor, someone like down in the ranks, and he ended up giving him a position, a higher position in 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 the empire, and he saw how he was loyal to him, but he kept ignoring his uncle's advice, which was 𝗵𝗫, right? Kept ignoring his uncle's advice, and then, but his friend wasn't showing any type of gratitude, but he couldn't see it
Hmm.
because was just focusing on the past and what he had done for him, right? And he felt like he owed him in a sense.
Hmm.
And then eventually what's his name? Basilius was like
Hmm.
putting so
Basilius.
much Basilius was putting so much poison in his ear that eventually he even overtook his uncle's position in the army, which was 𝗵𝗫𝗫, and then eventually wanted more and more power that ended up backstabbing the friend that got him there in the first place, which was the
Hmm.
king, right? So he, without noticing, had created a monster
Hmm.
in a sense, right? From this person forgetting the favors they had received, which actually says in the book, forget the favors they have received and imagine they have earned their success by their own merits. That's what sometimes happens when you give someone everything, in a sense. And
Hmm.
this guy was giving his friend everything. So by you doing that, is like that person didn't acknowledge that they got there through your help. They started to develop their own confidence and thinking that their own success came through themselves, which is not true. Um, and then just quickly, when they gave the good example of the Chinese dynasty, right? and how every king kept getting replaced and replaced and replaced again. There was this one time that this guy had said to all his generals, one day they were sitting, and he was like, what it says, I do not doubt your allegiance, but if by some chance your subordinates seeking wealth and position were to force it to the emperor's yellow robe upon you in turn, could you refuse it? And by asking those questions, they were like, you know, kept proclaiming their innocence and their loyalty to the king. But he said, if you are willing to give up your commands, I am ready to provide you with the fine estates and beautiful dwellings where you may take your pleasure with singers and girls of your companions. And the next day, everyone gave up their position. And that's how he kept power, in a sense, for almost, I forget how many years, but he kept power for a long time. So he got rid of the friendly wolves that were in his pack. So all that being said, I think the author was basically trying to say that if you are not careful with your own friends, they will chew you up, or they will try their best to, get things in their own interests. Now, I feel like I could relate to this and be like, it is true and not true at the same time, because I've had friendships in the past that you give it your all and it blinds you, in a sense, once they do good, but it blinds you from what they're capable of doing, in a sense, or things you didn't see in the past, things that were obvious. Why? Because you always feel like you owe them. And once you always feel like you owe them, it starts to blind you in a way where, like, you don't realize the not even the intent, but the actions that things are bringing back to you, and you start to ignore all the bad because you start to justify it with good. So, what do you think? I want to read a little bit more of these things that I have marked up, but I just want to know what you think.
So I summarize it. So there's two parts. So the way I summarize it, and I wrote it down. I wrote, use your enemies by transforming them into people in your debt. Prove your competence, but show your kindness and mercy. And then the other one is to maintain boundaries. That's the key with your friends. Friends should be friends, not more and not less. Because that's what I learned from this.
This is what I want to see. Okay.
Because he's basically saying that you actually don't really know your friends as well as you think you do.
Yes.
And I did a little bit of research because he said something fascinating here. He said he's on page 12, the second paragraph under keys to power. He says, since honesty rarely strengthens friendship, you may never know how a friend truly feels. Now, I found studies that do show that, but there's actually more studies and more evidence that prove the opposite of what he just wrote.
Okay.
So it is true, but there's more evidence to prove otherwise. But he really does, and I definitely agree with this, that there's something called the feedback avoidance, where psychological research shows that this feedback avoidance is common with friends because you don't want to risk bad emotions, or you don't want to risk the friendship, or you don't want to come off as mean. So you'll kind of say a white lie and you'll agree with a lot of things to avoid an argument or a fight that you may not think is so necessary, right?
Because you choose peace.
Because you choose peace, which it is a great thing, right? But that's why a lot of the times it's good to have friends who, like, no matter what, they'll tell you the truth. Now, of course, let's make sure that that friend tells you things with respect and it doesn't try to offend you, or right, like you could be completely honest as a friend, say the truth without offending him, without being mean, right? But he is saying that the problem is that we don't actually know people that well, and he also mentions He also says that we don't know people as well as we think. Also, when you decide to hire a friend, you gradually discover the qualities that they have kept from you. And especially
Yeah.
if you're working together or you're in a business or you guys are doing something, you'll realize a lot of bad things that you never knew. You're like, oh man, I actually don't like this person, and it could ruin everything completely. And then this person might betray you, and then it's like, wow, you were always a bad guy, and then you might fall into fallacies, right? So it's like, don't hire a friend. Don't do that. Keep them as friends, talk to them, play with them, whatever. But if you're gonna hire someone or be someone really close to you, hire someone who doesn't like you as much or an enemy. Be good to them, so now they owe you, so you can have leverage on them, and they're gonna prove themselves. So they're gonna work harder for you. And that's the best way to approach it. This is what he's really saying. And the example you gave about the Sung dynasty, he made sure to make these people go away, and he made them docile so they never betray him. So he's
Yeah.
putting at an arm's distance the friendly people, the friends, right? Because he doesn't want to avoid having those problems. So, do I agree with this? I think I do agree with it. I mean, there is that cliche thought: don't hire friends, don't hire family. Um, and I think for most of the time, I don't think always, but most of the time, there's definitely a big truth component to it. So yeah.
I do believe that as well. I guess you have to really get to know that person to see where their core values and morals fall, if they align with
Yes.
yours as well. If that's the case, and if they all align, it could fall or it could work. Either way, there's still like the chance of error, but
Right.
it can work. Um, but it does consist of truth because it also says here, it was interesting how that king Sung used his enemies, because he ended up transforming them into far more reliable subjects.
Yes.
Because while a friend expects more favors and sees with jealousy, these former enemies expected nothing but got everything. In a sense, because the friends that he made were like from other kingdoms, right? And they were enemies, maybe they fought, but he ended up like winning a war and then they ended up surrendering and then but talking it out, and instead of killing them, he gave them a position.
Yeah.
So that person was like so surprised. I was like, damn, I thought I was about to die. Like, yeah, I believe he ended up giving like a glass of wine or something to drink, and he thought it was like
Poison.
poison, but it wasn't. So and then that's the that way of living. He was just like, okay, so I'm gonna keep my friends for friendships, but the work with skilled and the competent ones, meaning that like these people that came from other kingdoms but hold the same position as me and understand what power is and what glory is, I can make them friends in a sense. But the people that have looked up to me or grown with me in a sense, I cannot keep them around or just keep them as friendships and not in the workplace. Because if I do, that's when they're going to potentially want to take over just because of our close relationship.
And also, I think that's a big component. It's like if you grow up with someone and you're so successful and they're not, and they're at your mercy or the your charity, envy will can be aroused. And envy is such a strong emotion; it can
Mhm.
overtake and make you emotional and make you do bad things to someone who's so close to you because you just can't take seeing your best friend who maybe you were the loser when growing up, but he was nice to you, and now that you're being successful, it's like, hey, I should be successful. I'm better, right? But he sees you being successful.
It's like when the roles reverse, right? Oh, damn, like this whole time, I was the one that was like going up in the ranks, and out of nowhere, in a snap of the fingers,
They
it's vice
change.
versa. Or this person got a better opportunity, now they're above you. How do you view that, right? If you're really their friend, you're going to feel happy for them
You should feel
because
happy for them,
you
correct?
should feel happy for them because my success is your success, right? Because we're friendships in a sense, right? Because as long as you grow, I'm growing. As long as I grow, you're growing, right?
I mean, not always, but I see what you're
But
saying.
I'm viewing it from a friendship perspective. Like,
Uh,
not that okay, you got this position. and I got this position, and obviously you're making more money than me. It's not that we're sharing money, you're winning and I'm winning. No, because you're the one getting more money. I'm not the one getting more money. But in a relationship, we've always wanted to grow. We've always wanted to get bigger. So seeing you win, I see myself as winning too, because in our friendship, we want to see each other grow.
Correct.
So that's how both of us are winning, in a sense, maybe emotionally, not necessarily monetarily, both of us, but uh just because of the relationship I have with you and the morals that we have and the emotional connection that we have, we're both winning because we've always wanted this for both of us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I do
Okay.
understand. Yeah.
And I wanted to ask this. It's going to be a very interesting question, but
No thanks. I'm leaving. I'm just
what?
kidding.
This wouldn't be an interesting podcast without hard questions. Uh,
Bro talk. Hard
bro,
questions.
time.
All right, go.
um, because I feel like the audience, some people are going to ask this and some people aren't. So let's catch those people unexpectedly. Do you think
Okay.
that this applies to us?
Of what?
This whole, because obviously we're not friends,
We're
we're
not.
family, right? We're brothers. Could this be applied to family as well? Because I believe there's a yes and no.
Mhm.
And I believe the audience at this point knows that obviously you're trying to build something, I'm trying to build something, we're doing this together.
Mhm.
Obviously, if something comes about, we're both going to benefit off of it.
Of course.
Um, but we're not
Literally.
just literally, right?
Mhm.
In almost every aspect, every factor. But this doesn't, does this apply to us? Obviously, I could say, can it apply to us? But realistically, to anyone it can.
Of course, yes.
But does, can it apply to family, or could it apply in a different sense to us? Right? Not
Mhm.
that we should be enemies. I don't think we should be enemies. But
No.
um I don't know. I don't know if you understand the question that I'm trying to put here.
Yes. And the answer is yes and no, and it depends. So
Wow.
that's the answer. Because yes, technically, should you work with family? Should you start a business with family? Most people, most entrepreneurs, most successful people, a lot of millionaires, not all, but a lot of them will say no. Do not do that because there's gonna be too much emotion to it.
A lot of people will say no, but then there's the low percentage of people that will say, who else do you have to trust? Are you going to go trust a stranger out there? Or are you going to trust, in a sense, your brother? You want the person you grew up your whole life with?
So I think it depends on your worldview and maybe where you were raised, so environment, right? So like for
Okay.
example, I could give a good example, like maybe in the Arabic culture, which is very generous and loving, and certain Jewish communities, family is like one of the most important thing, and family is so close, and it's like, or Indians, or even a lot of families who were raised, either in India or have Indian parents or Indian culture. A lot of times these people, they work together and they start businesses together, and they do things together. Yes, they have their problems, but you can also have a problem with a business partner. But then a lot of times, a potential reason that they might give is like, hey, if I'm gonna have a problem, I might as well have the problem with my family, because I know at the end of the day, I cannot divorce my family. Now, of course, there are families who don't speak to each other and they don't talk at all. I think it depends how you were raised in your family. And if you have the mindset, and this actually could also apply to a relationship or marriage, if you have the mindset like, no matter what happens or what argument we have, we are not going to get divorced, or this argument is not the end of us. If you can, both parties have that mindset, that's a very healthy mindset, and you can overcome anything. And especially if you're both willing to compromise, and you both have that track record, right? Maybe
Track
some people,
record. I like that.
maybe some people won't agree with me because track record doesn't always mean things. Whatever, putting that to aside. But if you have a track record and you have that mindset, you can potentially work with family. You can. I also think it depends what kind of business or what you're trying to do together, because if, for example, if you're trying to, let's say, grow our YouTube channel, and you both want to be leaders, and there is no space for two leaders, and you both are creative, and you both want to do only what you want to do, then you're gonna have a problem, right? You're gonna, unless you're both willing to compromise on and you go 50-50 potentially, but a lot of times that's not going to happen. But let's say in certain things you're like, okay, you're going to take the lead. I'm second position and I'm comfortable with second position. And maybe then other things you flip it. I think that mindset can truly help. If you have a track record, you both have healthy mindsets. And I think also if the business or the thing you're trying to grow doesn't require two heads all the time or top creativeness and stuff, I think it's more easier. And especially if you don't live together. If you don't, and I'm not talking about if you have a mansion and you live on one side and I live on the other side. I'm talking about if you live in the same 2-bedroom apartment or the same 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom house. I think if there's some space with family, space, this is a lot doable. I know I said a lot, but that's my answer.
You did say a lot. I believe that is very true. The core values that you have, the morality, what you guys agree upon, what you guys live under, and things like that play a factor. Obviously, the subjective part of things too, because sometimes family can carry on this trauma and continue a separation,
Correct.
and that could affect you and your relationships with your sisters, brothers, uncles, and stuff like that. And then you end up trusting more your friends than what your own family. But if that all aligns, and track record is not everything, but plays a part, communication, improvement, um, through fights, you see how things get better instead of worse. I think you could potentially start doing things with family, but aim for the same in the sense that you have like the similar goal, but communicate who plays what part. And if one part becomes higher than the other one, that other person has to be comfortable with that. Understanding that, listen, you play a part, but you might not get all the glory because maybe this part is more pronounced into the world, right? This is what
Mm-hmm.
people see. This is what people like. This is what gets us the views. But that doesn't mean that your other role isn't important. It's just this role comes with fame and this doesn't, in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
If you're able to understand that and be comfortable with that, and obviously see the other person, either family or friendship, win, i think I think it could work, but it just involves two mature minds, two mature people to really get to that level and understand that.
Yeah.
Also, I found very interesting, after answering that great
Mhm.
question I proposed.
Oh, wow.
it, it
Huh?
says, if you have no enemies, Aurus, find a way
Mhm.
to make them.
Correct.
How the hell do you do that? um,
Ah.
it says, because in page 13,
Mm-hmm.
right towards the end, it says, without enemies around us, we grow lazy. An enemy at our heel sharpens our wits, keeping us focused and alert. It is sometimes better to use enemies as enemies rather than transforming them into friends or allies.
Mm-hmm.
Is it necessary to always, make an enemy? Because even, I'm going to mention, which I haven't read the book, but I bought you the book.
Which one? Which one?
um, keep your uh
How to win friends and influence people? No.
no, it's the Patrick Bet David book. Um, something about enemies.
Keep your enemies
Uh,
closer.
yeah, keep your enemies close, or something,
Yeah, so, it's something like that. Yeah.
something, something like that. I'm not saying you start reading it. It just reminded me of that.
Maybe that should be the next book we go over.
Maybe we should.
Ooh. Okay, go. All right, continue.
This one's gonna be a while though. But I
Yeah,
think we
that's
go
true.
if we go
That's
if we
true.
go two chapters by two chapters, I think we'll be done in 24 minutes, which is fine. Um, but yeah, do I agree with this? It does, because sometimes when you're in a comfortable state, you don't expect any type of uh, of problems or any occurrence that could cause some type of tension. But when we have enemies, we kind of like fall out of that laziness and are always in a sense not tiptoeing, but we're always on the lookout.
Okay.
Is it necessary to live that type of life? I don't think so. To always have an enemy? No. I just feel like we might be interpreting the word enemy in a wrong way, where like not that someone is gonna come try and kill you,
Of course not. No, no.
or
I don't think that's what he's talking about.
yeah, or take your head off, not literally, but like in business wise, but maybe someone who is doing the same thing as you and provide some type of challenge, and instead of keeping them as a friend, that you could view them, you don't have to make them an enemy, but you could view them as an enemy in a sense to keep you going.
Mhm.
What do you think? That's the
I
way I'm seeing this.
I think a better word he could have used what is competition or competitiveness,
Okay.
right? You're right. He's not saying like an enemy that wants to kill you or actually physically harm you, right? He's I when I read this, I thought of actually of like basketball, right? Give me is there like a duo that like they don't like each other and every time they face on the court it's like it's on.
Not nowadays.
I thought of
Uh,
one, but I forgot the other guy's name.
who?
Larry Bird versus
Oh, there was a few. I mean,
the
back in
guy
the 80s, 90s, 80s were the Pistons versus Michael Jordan. That was a fight. Larry Bird too
versus
during that
Magic
time.
Johnson, right?
Magic
Versus
Johnson, that was a rivalry. They didn't like each other.
so
They ended up liking each other afterwards, but during game, no. Like during
not
that
at
time,
all.
yeah.
And I think that's what he's saying. And again, but he's using the word enemy as a strong, right, very seductive word. And you're like, whoa, an
Yeah.
enemy? Like, what do you mean? And then you got to keep reading, right? I just call this hypnotic writing, but I think that that's what he's talking about. Like, you need competition because it's true. If you don't have competition, you're not. It for a lot of people, being competitive is what makes them better, right?
Gives them that
For
purpose, like
it gives you
to
that purpose
excel.
in the sport, in the business,
Yeah.
and you as a man, right? Like why do so many guys go work out? Because they want to look aesthetically nice because their competition is other men are trying to seem attractive for the ladies. So it's like I want to look attractive, I got to get bigger. So
Hmm.
that's your competition, right? That's your competition that helps you stay focused, alert, and you're not lazy anymore. You stop being lazy because you have to improve either mentally, physically, knowledge wise, and so forth. Like,
Hmm.
for example, in my case, I'm very much into biblical literature and biblical studies. You know that. New Testament,
Yes.
Hebrew Bible, and I've been doing this for many years now. But when I first started years ago, I thought I was like, oh, I know this stuff. I know a lot, don't worry. But then when I started looking at other content from other creators, I don't know them personally. I love when they speak, but I'm like, I need to get to that level. Like I need to know more than them, or I need to know as much as them so I can have an engaging, smart conversation with these people, right? Or one day when I have the conversation with them, or people online or offline. So it kind of like motivates me, like I got to keep learning, I got to keep expanding my knowledge because I know because I'm adding things to my subconscious subjective
Hmm.
mind that this is going to happen. So it keeps me focused and alert, and and these are my competitors, right? Even though they're probably not, but I'm viewing it that way. So I think that that's what he means. I don't actually think he means like, yo, actually start a fight with someone, or like take someone's girl and start a fight, and now they're your enemy. Great. No, I don't think so. And you don't even need to try so hard to make competition or an enemy. You don't even have to, right? Like if you go play ball once a week at your local gym, and you see a lot of
Yeah.
guys there, don't be friendly with them. Just like play and play
Just
tough.
play, yeah.
Just play, and every time you see them, they're your quote unquote enemy or competition.
Because when you brought up the whole basketball point, it kind of made me realize, because like spirituality is like your war in a sense, right? Because you're constantly learning and you're constantly challenging yourself, and maybe when you speak to others that have other different point of views, that's something that you're very passionate about.
Correct.
And not that they're your enemy, but it's like it's like you're at a basketball court and they like play ball out of nowhere, and
Correct.
then
Yeah.
you're okay. Me against you, religion wise, I understand. I've noticed
Correct.
that I've noticed in basketball myself, when I'm mad, I play better.
Yeah, because you have also more testosterone.
because I have more testosterone, and maybe the competitive comes out more. And I don't know if I see everyone as an enemy, but it just starts to, like, when I'm just pissed
Yes.
for some reason.
You're gonna
Not that
play better.
I could play it better, but I've noticed that I'm not that I don't play. Not that I play horrible, and I'm not mad. Still think I play really well, but it's just I've seen something different in myself when I'm angry, or when I, in a sense, and I'm using the word angry as seeing others as an enemy, in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it takes out maybe that lazy side of me, where now I have to excel a certain amount of energy and strength into this game to get the outcome that I want.
Correct. You have something to prove now.
I have something to prove, and now it's not only coming out of a sense of joy and recreational purposes. Now it's coming out of a, a point in, I'm trying to make a point, or is also trying to come out of anger, in a sense, where, like, I don't just want to win, I have to win, in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like viewing something as an enemy, in a sense, where it could bring out the good in you and not keep you lazy. So I think it's just a different way of viewing it. Um, sorry, what you gonna say?
No, I just a little quick interesting fact, non sequitur, is that
Tell me.
actually when you're playing a sport, let's say, and let's say the both teams are angry and they're into it, right? They've done studies where after the game, the scientists didn't even have to watch the game to know who won. Now the question is, how did they know who won the game? Let's say a tennis game or a basketball game, but they never watched the game. So how did they know who won? Is because when they tested them, the winner of the game always had more testosterone, had an increased level of testosterone because they won the game, and the
Mm,
people who lost the game had a decrease of testosterone after the game.
really?
Even and this even applies if you're watching a game on TV, and let's say your team wins, your testosterone increases. If your team loses, you have a decrease of testosterone. So I don't know. I
Mm,
just thought that was interesting. But I no, I definitely agree with everything you mentioned too for the second law.
got you. And yeah, just one more point towards
Yes.
the end of this chapter, in the reversal part. I just really like the last paragraph.
Mhm.
It says, finally, the problem about working with friends is that it confuses the boundaries and distances that working requires, which is something you did mention.
Mhm.
If you are going to have these friendships, there has to be, you have to set boundaries, right?
Mhm.
Boundaries are very important. Sometimes people really forget that. People really forget that. They don't talk about boundaries, they just go into it.
Mhm.
Boundaries are really important to set. But if both partners in the arrangement the understand the dangers involved, a friend often can be employed to a great effect. You must never let your guard down in a venture. However, always be on the lookout for any signs of emotional disturbance, such as envy and ingratitude. Nothing is stable in the realm of power, and even the closest of friends can be transformed into the worst of enemies. That being said, I feel like, um, keep your friends keep your friends close and your enemies closer.